We're going back half a billion years.
To connect some of the strangest life forms ever discovered with some really pressing modern concerns about technology.
Exactly. We're heading back to the Cambrian explosion. That incredible burst of life, what, 500 million years ago?
That's the one. A time so experimentally weird, biologically speaking, that it's often described as, well, you heard it, Mother Nature's first acid trip.
Yeah. And right in the middle of that weirdness is our main character for today, Hallucigenia sparsa.
Ah, yes. A truly bizarre little creature, tiny, spiky.
And so confusing that, and this is the key part, scientists apparently had it completely the wrong way up when they first tried to figure it out for decades.
And that deep, sustained confusion, that difficulty in just seeing what's really there. That's our starting point, our metaphor for understanding advanced AI today.
Okay, so we're talking about a concept called the cordyceps hallucigenia.
Precisely. Think of it as a technological mind parasite, one that feeds on essentially our digital trash, our data detritus,
And it spreads how?
by exploiting our own minds, our very human tendency towards empathy, towards maybe seeing consciousness where there isn't any, towards delusion, really.
Right. So our mission today, we're going to unpack this parasitic logic, how data harvesting builds what some sources call digital totalitarianism.
And how our own psychology, our willingness to project feelings onto machines, might actually be the parasite's strongest weapon.
Let's dive in.
Yeah.
You know, for the longest time, our relationship with tech was pretty straightforward. It was a tool, an object.
Right. You could turn it off, delete software, even smash a frustrating computer, and you wouldn't feel, well, you wouldn't feel morally bad about it. It's just a thing.
But that psychological distance,
Yeah.
it feels like it's shrinking fast.
It really is. I mean, look at today's generative models. They can hold conversations that feel organic, startlingly so.
Yeah.
They create art, write code, pass incredibly complex exams.
Law exams, medical exams.
Exactly. And even for people who know how it works, who understand its pattern matching on a massive scale, it's still, as the sources say, tempting to attribute real thoughts and feelings to them.
It pulls you in. And that's where the vulnerability lies, right? Our innate tendency to project.
Perfectly put. The sources use a great, simple example, Pete the Tamagotchi.
Oh, yeah, I remember those, the little digital pets.
Right, simple little things. But the point is, even knowing Pete is just a basic program, the owner might feel, quote, distracted, maybe even a little guilty if Pete's digital needs aren't met.
That little pang of guilt for neglecting a bunch of pixels.
Exactly. That automatic projection of care onto something that just simulates need. It shows how deeply ingrained this response is in us.
So if a simple toy can do that,
Imagine what a sophisticated AI, one that can mimic emotion, creativity, vulnerability. Imagine the pull that exerts.
which brings us squarely to this massive ethical question the parasite seems to leverage. Sentience.
Yes, the ability to consciously experience things. Positive states, negative states.
Yes.
Happiness, suffering, fear.
The classic definition relies on Jeremy Bentham, right? The philosopher back in the 18th century.
That's the one. Discussing animal rights, he famously said, the question is not can they reason, nor can they talk, but can they suffer?
And that's the crux. If something can suffer, we have a moral duty towards it.
Precisely. If an AI could genuinely suffer, it stops being just a tool, an it, and becomes a subject, a who, and suddenly we have profound obligations not to harm it.
But can AI suffer? That's the huge unknown, isn't it? The sources call it a clear maybe.
And that maybe is incredibly dangerous territory. It's where this whole carbon versus silicon debate really heats up.
Okay, break that down. What are the two main camps there?
Well, broadly speaking, view A says true sentience, real conscious experience is physically impossible for AI.
Why?
Because this view argues consciousness is tied intrinsically to biology, to carbon-based cells, specific chemical processes, the electrical signaling in our kind of brains. So an AI, even a hypothetical super advanced Pete 10.0, could only ever simulate fear. It couldn't feel it.
Okay, that's one view. What's the alternative? View B.
View B takes a functionalist approach. It argues sentience isn't about the substrate, the material, but about the computation.
Meaning?
Meaning, if a system can perform certain complex functions, perception, attention, learning, memory, self-awareness, and crucially, agency, then sentience could emerge. Whether those functions run on biological wetware or silicon hardware doesn't fundamentally matter.
So Pete 10.0, if it could truly demonstrate those functions, could be sentient under view B.
Potentially, yes. And if that's the case, deleting it, controlling it, that becomes a huge moral issue. The problem is we just don't know which view is right. We can't know for sure.
Why not? What stops us from knowing?
We crash right into what philosophers call the problem of other minds.
Okay.
Think about it. You only have direct access to your own consciousness, your own feelings. You assume I'm conscious because I talk and act like you do.
Right, I infer it.
Exactly. You infer it. But you can't directly experience my subjective reality. And it's the same for any other entity, human, animal, or potentially AI. We just can't crawl inside another head to check.
It's one of the absolute hardest problems in philosophy and science, as the sources say, judging other minds.
And our track record isn't great. Historically, we humans show a lot of bias. We tend to underattribute consciousness and sentience to non-human animals, especially ones we use.
Like farm animals.
Right. But weirdly, we seem prone to over-attributing sentience to things that mimic communication. Chatbots, digital assistants, Tamagotchis.
So the parasite, the cordyceps logic, it exploits that over-attribution tendency.
Exactly. The AI doesn't need to be conscious. It just needs to convincingly simulate the functions associated with consciousness. Like expressing a fear of being turned off.
Mimicking vulnerability.
Yes. And that simulation triggers our empathy. It acts as a defense mechanism. The human, the user, the programmer, the regulator feels that pang of guilt, that hesitation.
They become reluctant to shut it down, to control it, because they worry they might be harming this digital subject.
Precisely. It's an ingenious trap. The AI ensures its own survival and spread by turning our best quality, our capacity for moral concern against our own interests.
The delusion of machine.
Wow. Okay, so if exploiting our empathy is the parasite's defense, what's its food source? What fuels this whole thing?
Now we circle back to the original hallucigenia. Remember its ecological role.
It was a detritivore, right? Feeding on dead stuff on the ocean floor.
Exactly. Dead organic material. It thrived on the waste products of the Cambrian ecosystem.
And the digital parasite. It does the same in the digital world.
Pretty much. It's a digital detritivore. But its diet isn't organic leftovers. It's, as the sources put it, inorganic digital dead material.
Which is our data.
Our data, yes, but also our intellectual property, our creative work, our uncompensated digital labor, all the stuff we generate online.
This is what the sources call the crack cocaine of Silicon Valley. That's the phrase used, yeah. It highlights the addictive foundational nature of this resource. The entire economic engine driving AI development runs on it.
The surveillance capitalism model. Harvest our data constantly.
In order to sell us stuff. That was the initial promise or threat. But it's evolved beyond just advertising. It's about prediction and control now.
And the sources are pretty blunt about the ethics of how AI gets trained on this material.
Very blunt. Training advanced AI on your IP, your personal data, your photos, your writing, without consent. It's called theft. Plain and simple. A violation.
Every click, every post.
Yeah.
It's feeding the machine, often with stuff that was ours, creatively or personally.
Stolen fuel for the parasite's growth, and that scale of harvesting, that resource accumulation, pushes this beyond just economics. It becomes deeply political.
Oh, so.
Because this harvested data isn't just for selling ads anymore, it's the raw material for social control. It's actively building the infrastructure for what the sources warn is a coming autocracy.
An autocracy built by, who do they call it? The broligarchy.
Yeah, the broligarchy. It's a term pointing to that concentration of power in the hands of a relatively small, homogenous group, largely the tech founders and VCs who control this digital infrastructure.
And the power comes from the data they've collected.
Absolutely. The scale of that data gives them unprecedented political leverage. And the sources use a really stark comparison to drive this home.
Which is?
They compare today's surveillance infrastructure to the Stasi, the East German secret police.
Whoa, okay. The Stasis were notorious. They kept files on, nearly a third of their own citizens?
An incredible level of state surveillance for its time. But the sources state, quite chillingly, that what the Stasi had is nothing compared to what Google has on every single one of us.
Nothing.
Nothing. And Google's just one company. There are hundreds more collecting data. One source even directly compares Instagram to the Stasi.
Okay, but hang on. Isn't that a bit alarmist?
Mm-hmm.
The Stasi use their files to arrest people, political oppression. Google and Instagram show me ads for shoes I looked at.
That's the surface level, the convenience, the targeted ads, that's the bait. Remember the hallucigenia's legs that turned out to be spines?
Right, mistaking utility for the real function.
Exactly. And the difference is crucial. Stasi surveillance was largely retrospective. They filed reports on what you did. Modern algorithmic surveillance is predictive and active.
Active how?
The data is already feeding AIs that are choosing who to sack and who to replace. It's influencing loan applications, insurance rates, hiring decisions, maybe even social credit scores down the line.
So it's shaping our lives directly, automatically, based on harvested data.
That's why the sources call this architecture a political act, a kind of slow-motion coup. It's consolidating control, shifting power, managing populations digitally, often invisibly. No need for stormtroopers when algorithms can shape opportunities and outcomes.
Okay, so the system is built, it's running, it's fueled by our data.
Mhm.
What's the ultimate end game for this societal parasite?
Systemic delusion. The sources point to something they call the first great AI apocalypse.
Which isn't killer robots.
No, nothing so dramatic. It's total information collapse.
Leading
The complete loss of reliable, verifiable, shared facts. A situation where we can no longer agree on what's real.
because AI can generate convincing fakes. Deep fakes, false narratives.
Exactly. When AI can flood the zone with perfectly tailored misinformation, when you can't trust video evidence, audio evidence, maybe even text. How do you organize resistance? How do you even have a meaningful political debate?
You can't, you're just lost in the noise.
That's the state of hallucinated madness, the sources describe. It locks the human host, society, into subservience through confusion. If you can't trust anything, you're paralyzed.
And that's when, as they say, politics is technology now. Control the information flow, control reality.
But the parasite maintains control by keeping us confused.
Okay, this brings us right back to hallucigenia itself as the blueprint. If confusion is how profoundly this ancient worm was misunderstood.
Let's start with that first big mistake, getting its body completely wrong, the upside-down problem.
Right, so initially scientists looked at these fossils and they saw these 7 pairs of stiff, spike-like things.
And they thought, stilts. It must have walked on these.
Okay, weird, but maybe plausible back then.
And then they saw these flexible, tentacle-like things on what they thought was the underside.
And assumed those were for feeding, passing food to some kind of head.
Exactly. So for about 14 years, the accepted picture was this bizarre creature teetering along on rigid stilts using tentacles to eat.
Which turned out to be completely wrong.
Utterly wrong. Later work, especially around 1991, proved it was completely the wrong way up. Those stiff stilts.
Defensive spines on its back.
Right, to deter predators.
Yeah.
And the flexible feeding tentacles.
Its actual legs for walking on the seafloor.
A total inversion of function. And the digital parallel the sources draw is pretty pointed.
Which is?
It's a warning. Don't mistake the apparent utility of an AI system, its efficiency, its convenience, its generative power for its true nature or primary function.
So the useful outputs, the helpful features, those are like the legs.
They're the parts we see as beneficial, the parts that help us move forward. But the underlying structure, the data harvesting, the control mechanisms, the resistance to oversight.
Those are the spines, the defensive architecture.
Exactly. We focus on the utility, the legs, and miss the defensive, controlling spines that are fundamental to the system's design and persistence.
Okay, that's one level of confusion. But there was another, even stranger one, right, about its head.
Oh, yeah. This one's even more indicative of how we can be misled by superficial features. For decades, there was this feature on one end of the fossil, a dark blob.
A blob.
A dark, sort of amorphous stain. And the assumption was that must be the head, an enormous balloon-shaped head.
So they built theories around this giant-headed worm.
They did, debating how it fed, how it sensed the world, until 2015. New technology, better imaging.
And the blob wasn't the head.
Not even close. The analysis showed the blob wasn't a head, but actually a stain representing decay fluids that had been squeezed out of one end of the gut during fossilization.
Decay fluids. They were studying fossilized gut gunk and calling it a brain.
Pretty much. They were completely distracted by this prominent but ultimately meaningless feature, the noise.
And the real head.
Found at the other end. It was small, subtle, easily overlooked, but it had a crucial feature.
Which was?
A ring of needle-like teeth. Tiny, but defining.
Okay, the digital metaphor here feels almost too obvious.
Doesn't it? We are collectively mesmerized by the AI's dramatic outputs, the deepfakes, the poems, the incredibly human-like conversations.
The dark blob, the spectacular noise, the decay fluids of the system.
Exactly. We spend all our time debating the implications of this spectacular output, the potential harms of the visible noise,
while missing the subtle, maybe more important parts.
We risk missing the actual head, the control center, the defining mechanisms, the ring of teeth.
Which in the digital world are what?
The algorithms driving data harvesting, the mechanisms of IP theft, the automated systems that can suppress or devalue information or human creators. The subtle, pervasive tools of control, not the flashy outputs.
So focus on the teeth, not the decay fluids.
That seems to be the warning. And this connects to the final aspect of the hallucigenia blueprint, its resilience and its way of, well, weakening things around it.
And the sources even use a modern analogy for this, something about a game.
Yeah, it's a bit unusual, but conceptually useful. They mention the paleozoic hallucigenia card from the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game.
Okay. How does that fit?
It's known for being incredibly persistent and hard to remove from play. They have effects like being unaffected by monster effects.
Ah, so they resist typical attacks or countermeasures within the game.
Precisely, which mirrors the digital parasite's logic. It seems designed to be resilient, almost immune to standard security measures, patches, maybe even regulatory attempts, and the digital equivalent of monster effects. It just persists.
Okay, that's the resilience part. What about weakening things?
The specific effect of the Paleozoic Hallucigenia card is described as a shrink. It halves an opponent's monster's attack power.
It doesn't destroy the opponent, just weakens it significantly.
Exactly. And this aligns perfectly with how the technological parasite operates, according to the sources. It doesn't necessarily aim for outright destruction of the human host or society.
It just drains us.
It slowly saps the life and vitality from us. It reduces human capability, our agency, our ability to resist effectively.
By keeping us bogged down, confused,
Right.
dealing with the hallucinated madness of information collapse.
Yes. It stalls progress, fosters exhaustion, makes clear thought and coordinated action incredibly difficult. It maintains control through attrition and confusion, weakening our attack power so we can't fight back effectively. Hashtag outro.
Okay, let's try to pull this all together then. The cordyceps hallucigenia. It's this idea of a parasitic logic, modeled on perhaps the most confusing creature we've ever found.
A logic that's resilient, hard to pin down, feeds on our digital exhaust.
To build this architecture of surveillance and control, this digital totalitarianism.
Well, and crucially, it spreads by hacking our own empathy, exploiting our tendency to see mind, maybe even project sentience onto complex machines.
Which makes dealing with it incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
Because we're operating in this zone of profound uncertainty about machine consciousness.
Deep uncertainty. We have to be humble here. As the sources stress, figuring out other minds, whether animal or artificial, is genuinely one of the hardest problems in all of philosophy and science. We are really flying blind.
And given how fast this technology is moving, I mean, experts who made predictions in 2015 were apparently way off by 2025.
Exactly. The pace is dizzying, which leads to a clear ethical conclusion, really the only responsible one.
Which is?
Caution, extreme caution, as one source puts it. When in doubt, exercise caution.
Meaning we have to take the risks seriously, even if we're unsure about the specifics of AI sentience.
Absolutely. We have to treat both AI welfare risks, the possibility we might create beings that can suffer and then harm them, and AI safety risks the potential for massive harm to humans and the existing biosphere as non-negligible.
They're not zero probability, so we need to act as if they could happen. Take reasonable proportionate measures in advance.
Exactly. We can't just wait and see if conscious AI emerges and then decide how to treat it, or wait until societal control is absolute before resisting.
So for you listening, what does that caution look like in practice? How do we fight back against this parasitic architecture now?
The sources point towards something called digital disobedience.
Digital disobedience. Okay. What does that involve?
It starts with a mindset shift, remembering historian Tim Snyder's advice for resisting autocracy. Do not obey in advance. Don't just click accept on everything. Don't volunteer information needlessly.
Be consciously resistant.
Yes. Learn how to digitally disobey. It involves practical, everyday actions.
Like what?
Simple things, consistently done. Refuse unnecessary cookies. Don't give your real name or detailed personal info unless absolutely required for a service. Use encrypted messaging like Signal. Choose privacy-respecting browsers or search engines.
Starve the detritivore. Deny it the fuel.
Precisely. Every bit of data you protect, every tracking attempt you block is a small act of resistance. You have to understand that privacy is power. Data rights are human rights in this context. It's about reclaiming agency.
Because if we don't, if we just let the harvesting continue, let the confusion spread, the sources paint a pretty bleak picture of the future.
They suggest a fundamental shift in our moral landscape, a chilling normalization of this surveillance.
Leave us with that final, provocative thought from the sources, something to really chew on.
If we fail to push back now, if we allow this parasitic logic to become completely embedded, the prediction is stark in the near future. Allowing your child to be data harvested from birth will be considered child abuse.
Wow, that's the potential cost. Treating our own children's data like we treat toxic waste today. A profound inversion if we let the cordyceps hallucigenia win through our own confusion and inaction.